Thanks, Lau. Alrighty, so I'll click on the start button, record button I should say, and we'll start looking at the charts. Alright, good morning everyone. Welcome to our live trading room at Admiral Markets. Thank you for joining us again on today, Wednesday, the 19th of June, 2013. My name is Chris Svorcik, and I'll be going through the charts with you together here at Admiral Markets. Before we start, always the usual disclaimer warning you that trading on the global financial markets is considered high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please be aware of that and seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this video and live session or recording or webinar is for educational purposes only. So thanks for your attention, and we'll go through this quick PowerPoint. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, we're going to take a look at the markets and see if we can catch some intraday trades or swing trades or maybe even position trades together, or at least I. Good morning, Gabor, by the way. You'll be seeing me trade my own money, and we'll be looking at various strategies such as breakout trades, pullback continuations, but also the swing trades I mentioned last week, Thursday, as well, the Thursday webinar, educational webinar. All right, especially focused on breakouts. Here are some examples. And make sure to follow Admiral Markets in Facebook and Twitter, for example. And before we start looking at the charts, we're going to take a look at the calendar, and we have a MPC meeting minutes on the pound, which is considered high impact. And later in the day, we have the FOMC statement. That's always a rocker, so something to be aware of. That's still quite far from now, 11 hours, but still good to be aware of that. We also have some governors speaking on the CAD, but also on the pound. The CAD is considered low, but pound high impact, and the New Zealand GDP also high impact. All right. Some medium Euro news maybe this morning, but otherwise, I think we can move on and take a look at the charts. I still have it on this Euro odd. I see that was yesterday. We made a pretty good move up to approximately this 127, even the 1618 target, as you see, to the pip. It managed to push through quite a bit later, though. That was really like hours and hours later, but still. So let's see. This could definitely still push up. If you took the 4-hour setup on the oscillator strategy I mentioned Thursday, you're doing very well because the entry is above this high. So that looks like, let's see, already 2-to-1 almost. 1-to-1 for sure in the pocket. Now it's a bit tricky, in my opinion, because it's quite close to this top. It hit this 886 as well here on the left, as you see. So that's a bit tricky now. It's always a bit easier if it makes such a big correction like this. You know, a break here is perfect, and there are many possibilities of the fibs, breakouts here. So there are many options on this up move. At this point, I guess the only thing that I would be interested in, maybe if it breaks, first of all, maybe for sure if it breaks this top, maybe if it breaks this, but then we have this bigger top already in play. So it's a bit tricky now. So I think I would rather see a total break and then a smaller consolidation and then another break before I really actually trade this Euro odd. Otherwise, there is always still that potential of a bigger correction on the day chart. If we look at the day chart, you can see that this is quite a substantial top, and there's always that potential of moving one more down for a bigger correction and then up again. So now that we're approaching this top, I definitely want to be careful and rather see a break of this top probably before attempting long. Not interested in short because that's counter trend, always looking forward with the trend trades. So that makes it a bit tricky. Yesterday and Monday was great trading, though, as we know, with a lot of breaks, opportunities in here everywhere, actually. All right. Now a bit tricky. So let's move on to something else. EuroCAD worked well as well, but I didn't like the spread for an intraday trade. It was a nice breakout trade here though. Hook back, continuation. I made good money on that EuroCAD. That too could be interesting, but I would like to see a bigger consolidation correction, at least something like this before trading it. Now it's just nothing yet. We don't even have two tops to connect the trend line, so no potential for a breakout on that one. Let's see. CAD could be maybe downside break coming here. I can see. But it is a bit tricky because then again, if you look at the 4-hour chart, we had a nice down move. All right. But then again, we broke this high already just recently, last night, or my last night, which makes me a bit leery. This is still also key highs, but we broke out of that trend line. So, what is the trend? It's a bit in a grayish neutral area, I would say. It's not an uptrend yet, unless we get maybe one more lower high here, and I like this, and break this, for example. That would be already, maybe make some correction and break this trend line. That would already be maybe an uptrend. This is a bit iffy, to be honest, because of this last push-up. A break here would have been good. This is getting a bit iffier. Let's see. Yeah. Let me see the 15-minute world. Yeah, we could still find a bounce here at these moving averages and then a move down, for example. That's possible. So I'll keep it in mind, but still, it's a bit iffy for me. Not as nice as the Euro odd, where everything is nice and clearly defined. Anyhow, now just wanted to show you the Euro odd because I had it on that chart. Let's move on to the pound dollar first, like always, and then we'll scan through the charts and continue that. Let's see, the London Open trade, not that regular, as you know, but still want to check it. And the start time is 5 a.m., the end time is 7 a.m., and that was here, and we had a pretty impulsive start again of the Europe session. That's quite typical lately, with already a 40-pip move prior to European Open. It's quite strong. Yesterday we were actually looking at the GU intraday characteristics. Let's see, where was that? That was, we just checked that. That was the 18th of June. That was here, right? Yeah, so apparently you can see here we had a first move down. And I was saying here, wow, that's already a big move. We could expect a bounce, but if we stay long enough under these levels, we could continue to the downside. It will not be a false breakout, but it will be actually an intentional move. That's kind of what happened. We had some price action above it, but they turned into wicks on this 50-minute chart. We couldn't close above those levels, as I said, and indeed that was the intentional move. We stayed 30, let's see, almost 2 hours here. Yeah, this alone was like 30, this was like 1 hour 45 minutes, plus we stayed here another, so it stayed like more than 2 hours for sure, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So definitely an intentional, not a false spike, and you see the move down continued. But what happened was on this pound is that we bumped into the 618 fib. As you see. All right. Now I'm fibbing this weak candle actually. This is the entire weak candle to the upside. If we break this low, that's breaking the weekly fib, the weekly low, and that would be a significant event if we break last week's low, because we're having definitely a lot of bullish candles, bullish momentum. So that's for me a key level at 154.90. If we break that weekly low, last week low, then the things are definitely turning on this pound into bearish momentum. But as long as we stay above there, I'm bullish, so that's why I have that fib, and we did bounce off that 618 after we bounced off the 50 here. So this could be upside continuation, and I have therefore this trend line right in here. So that could be interesting. I want to monitor this pound because that could be a good break. I'll zoom into the 50-minute world again. So we don't have that London Open trade, basically, to summarize, because we already have, again, here we have a pre-Europe break, actually. So a lot of movement earlier on in the session. So we can use those GU characteristics, which is also an educational webinar, by the way, to our advantage and see if we can use the same tactic for today regarding the intentional and false movements that we had here. So I'm only really interested in upside because of the trend still is to the upside. Not interested in downside personally. All right. Let me get rid of these few of these lines of yesterday. Let's see. This is the, no, I have wrong lines here. I want just the high of the Asian session and the low of the Asian session. All right. And first of all, right. That's a small range, which is usual, but we already had a breakout here of that range at the European Open. Okay, good. So let's see how long we can stay above this high. I would like to see we are going to be an hour above it. If an hour from now we're still above this level, we probably will see the intentional break to the upside and a break of this trend line. So let's see. I think we'll still need an hour time probably. Maybe see some retracements like this. Maybe a move down, bounce, something like that, and then could see the break here. That's something I would be interested in. If it does something like this, I'm not interested in anymore because it broke this up support line, and it could break to the downside, but I'm not interested in that downside. All right. Because I consider this an uptrend. So I'm pretty, always geared towards trading with the trend and finding an impulse with the trend. That's always the best trading in my opinion. That's why I like breakout trades because like the Euro odd and the Euro CAD, which made tremendous upside. And as I've been writing my article as well, because of the fact that you already have a trend, and if you have a correction counter in the opposite direction of the trend, and then you get a continuation of that same trend in the same direction, usually there's a lot of power in the market. And sometimes you do get false breakouts, but most of the time, if your trend lines are good enough, then there's a lot of momentum pushing it. All right, so I'm going to keep an eye on this one personally. Let's move on to the Euro maybe. We didn't talk about the Euro yesterday. And the Euro had a breakout here to the upside. Finally, it was stuck in this wedge. Wasn't really biased to any upside or any particular side because I could have imagined a break to the downside to a 618 fib like the pound actually did, but the Euro didn't, and it actually broke to the upside, which in a way could be definitely possible because we're in that trend already. So a break to the upside is definitely possible as well, of course. I wouldn't have been surprised to see it retrace to the 618 fib, as I said, like the pound dollar did, but the Euro broke to the upside, and actually the Euro pound moved a lot yesterday, just like any Euro cross, Euro CAD, Euro odd, Euro New Zealand, all of them, also the Euro pound. But anyhow, so this broke to the upside, not to the downside. Let me get rid of some fibs. I see that chart is a bit crowded, I think. Let's see. I don't need that many support lines at the moment. Let's start with the day chart otherwise. Let's see. So for those of you who didn't see, because I'm not, some of you probably saw every day, some of you maybe just a few days. So for those of you who maybe seen the Euro dollar analysis less regularly. Let me get rid of these. To me, as I've been saying already since we started with our sessions in June, somewhere here, and what I've been writing already in our article since here, this is going to be a turnaround here. Just because we had this big momentum, this is a correction, continuation, correction, continuation. All right. Now, it doesn't mean that necessarily this upside will continue forever. We're going to bump into some resistances, definitely at the 786 and probably at the 886 as well. So those are logical resistance spots where you could see, a move down. How far is the question? I have to see how price responds to the 786. All right. So I'm not sure. It could be big downside. It could be very small downside, continuation. I have to see how price responds to it. It's definitely a resistance level in any case. Definitely an uptrend as well, because look at this, higher highs, higher lows, again pushing up. So although the speed here is a bit rounding, we just broke this high again yesterday. So up to that 135, not sure. It could crawl, could go up fast, but the likelihood of it going up higher is high. So in my opinion. So you can see here we had a small retrace of this move up, 236 bounce. So that target is the minus 272, which is at 134.30, and the 618 is at the 886 as well here. There's some confluence there. If we zoom in a bit, you can see, in my opinion, yesterday's low, definitely important. Otherwise, we could see maybe that retrace, still a retrace of last week's candle. I'll put a fib on that last week's candle as well from here. That too, of course, is a major level, just like the pound, last week's low. So those are the key support levels at the moment, and the fib still halfway, right? Definitely, just like the pound bounced off the 618. So those are key support levels. Starts to do a lot of price action would have to happen before this is actually turned into a bullish mode. And I don't think it really makes sense to start catching shorts. I know that some people like to try to catch the turn, but if you look at this, it proves that it doesn't really make much sense, does it? Because currency just keeps on pushing up, and you're a lot safer if you try to find a good spot to the upside. As I've been saying constantly. So yeah, pretty much doing what I expected on this euro dollar. And let's see if that continues. Wouldn't expect a break of, if it stays above here, should definitely continue for a nice while. Maybe a small dip is possible back to the support line, and then up. That could be support as well. Was a bit funky yesterday. You can see breakout, deep hook back to support, but then again a bounce, deep hook back, but then again a bounce. So despite the choppiness, still moving up and up, right? So what I would like to see on this euro at the moment is, well, I guess this could be a break. It's a bit of a small consolidation zone. Let me take a look at this chart here on the 1 hour. Yeah, I prefer something like this a lot better, or this. Those two a bit more. This is not the best setup in my opinion, to be honest. Despite the fact that I am bullish and see a bullish trend, and I see break of the high here, it's not this is not the easiest to trade, to be honest. All right, this is a lot better. Catch right in here and right in here. Those are a lot clearer to see than if it's crawling up like this. It makes it a bit difficult. We got a question regarding what moves the price, supply and demand. So it's just a lot of banks and brokers who give the orders to the banks, and banks who accept them, and it's not a centralized market. All right. So it's these banks that have the data coming in, and they have the price. It's not like a stock exchange that is centralized. So it's a bit tricky here. This could be a breakout already, actually, right in here. So it's possible. I'm not too big of a fan of it, though, somehow. Looks pretty, I mean, it's a pretty bullish candle. Has a small wick here at the top. All right, so not that bad. Not that bad. I prefer bigger corrections, to be honest. That's why, but let's see. 5-minute world. Also, if we break this top, we're right at this top again. So I'm not sure. It's I would still rather wait on the sideline, see if we can break maybe this top, make a small pause, then maybe continue. For example, let me see what the pound is doing now. Or take a look at the pound, because the pound is a more clearer structure. It has a clear trend line, and a break of that trend line, would be a good indication of a continuation of the uptrend. I like in that regard, the pound has a nice structure. Let me take a look at the euro pound to see what's happening there. The euro pound, as I said yesterday, as I said earlier today, that we had the euro strength, right? Big impulse. So that's begging for continuation. But the question is when. And I think when the AO is back to the zero line here, and we make maybe some correction like that, it could be ready for upside. We can use this trend line. We'll probably get hopefully one more touch of that trend line and respect, so that we have 3 touches on that trend line, and when it breaks, I think that would be a good, that's what trade I'm looking for here when this is back to the zero line. So it's not now, it's a few hours from now, I would say, maybe New York. Still some consolidation. And then a break would be good on the euro pound. All right, so that could mean that if the euro pound maybe makes some downside here still, then the pound hopefully makes that break to the upside. But this could be a very good, interesting trade, because the break of this high is very likely. Just like, remember the euro dollar last week, 2 weeks ago, that the consolidation took a bit longer than we expected, but eventually it did break to the upside, right? The AO was very high. Here too, very high, very strong. We saw it break yesterday, actually, right? We saw it break here, which I didn't like at that time yet, because I still didn't like this wedge, to be honest. Okay, but now we broke out of the wedge. All right, we broke out of this wedge with a good impulse. In the correction, now it's different, in my opinion. Now I like it more. I was actually trying to catch this upside already earlier, remember? Here off the 50 fib. Here I took that trade, but then we got a bigger correction, bounced off the 618, didn't go anywhere, made a huge sideways correction, horrible mess actually. Now finally got that clean break. So now it looks better to trade, and finally, it took a long time, longer than I expected, but we rounded here, as I was already thinking, because this is a breakout trade here as well. So this is a breakout, B, breakout here, pullback. And now we finally got the continuation of this blue trend line. And this trend line as well has, this is the break, this is pullback, and that could be the continuation, right, of actually the continuation. So you can see them almost everywhere, as you see, right? That's the the B with the circles is actually the BBC of the bigger C, in a way, right, of this trend line. And if you even zoom out more, you see that we actually made a very nice impulses here to the upside for those who added waivers with 5 waves up. Bounced off the 50 fib. That's where we actually made double bottom and broke this trend line. All right, so just to give a context, broke trend line, hook back, continuation, which I was already saying in here is likely. That's what's happening finally now. All right. So that's why I like this trade. But I would prefer it if it made one more touch and down and then break, because then this is back to the zero line and we have 3 touches on the trend line. I like that. I like 3 touches on the trend line. All right. So I hope that makes sense. That's my plan on the euro pound anyhow. Someone saying maybe BBC and euro dollar. Yeah, could be. Could be break of this high. And the stop loss would have to be below this fractals, right? So it could make sense. But personally, I'm going to skip it. It probably will work, to be honest. And I'll probably bang my head that I didn't take it. But although it's moving up, I still not a big fan of the entire structure. That's why. Despite the fact that I've been bullish so long and see it as an uptrend, I don't know, not a big fan of it. Maybe if we break this top, I'll revisit it. That could change the perspective for me. That would be basically, if we break that top, what we're in fact doing is breaking yesterday's high. We're quite close to that yesterday's high. I mean, this is 134.01. Yesterday's high was 131.15. I don't like going long right below a high or going short right against a low. That's the reason. So this is a bit of a multi-time frame analysis here that we'll actually, I think, discuss soon in one of our webinars. So take a look at that in our educational webinars. So that's one of the reasons what I don't like about it. If we break that high, yesterday's high, then resistance is out of the way, which is only 15 pips away from now anyhow. And then I might, look at lower time frame charts or maybe 1 hour chart and see on the 5-minute world if I can catch an impulse to the upside, or a 1 hour correction that is similar to something like what I said earlier, like this, right? Or this. Any correction that has at least 2 or 3 touches on the trend line, and preferably the AO back to the zero line, that would be the preferred breakouts. All right, so that's the euro dollar. Bullish, but still in a waiting game until we break at least yesterday's high. Otherwise, we could definitely see a pullback here and a bounce off maybe these moving averages or off this trend line or off yesterday's low, like that to the upside. If we break yesterday's low, I'm definitely cautious of the bullishness, and we might see a deeper retrace before moving up. All right, so let's see, anything else? Yeah, then for example, we could fall maybe like that and then bounce, but I'm not interested in a fall. Yeah, you can see here on the 4 hour chart, it's a great example. If we break yesterday's low, we still bump into a massive number of moving averages, which could definitely push it up. All right, just like the 1 hour chart, he could push it up from here already. So anything else? I guess that's about it. Yeah, Kaylin is saying that actually the dollar index is near support as well. So as we saw yesterday, I think that if I remember correctly, still was expecting one more push down on that dollar index, but I haven't looked today yet. So we can take a look in a minute, actually. So I hope that makes sense. This is how I look at currencies, and for me, this works very well. I wait for breakouts, and preferably trade it on the 1 hour chart. And I've taken more trades actually with you on 15.5 because I know there are a lot of intraday traders which I try to accommodate as well. But really, my bread and butter trading is 1 hour, 4 hour trading, and scanning a lot of currencies and looking at a lot of setups on different charts and only choosing the ones I really like the most, really, and having a lot of having more patience in waiting for the best ones. Like yesterday on the EuroCAD, a trade like that makes a whole week already a very good week for me, let alone if I catch a few of them. So let's see. This moving down as we speak actually a bit. Let's see, we still have some support levels here that it could bounce. But that's about it, I guess, on the euro dollar. I hope that makes sense. Break of this or a bounce in here. Aussie. Well, the Aussie bounced off that more or less the 618 fib, or maybe even this target in here, as you see. So it looks like it was hunting for the target, not necessarily the retracement fib, actually. And yeah, that was a good breakout trade as well. Breakout and continuation pullback. This AO 4-hour strategy is working well as well, right? As you see, hit the target, eventually came close to, let's see, to even the 786. But the problem now with the Aussie is that this downside definitely had good potential. Now it's a bit tricky because we could be either correcting for more upside, which means that we can make an up move like this on the 4-hour chart, all right, to this target and this high, like a three-wave motion to the upside. Or we could do something like this. Sorry, let me use different colors actually. Something like this, and then down. Yeah, so that would be interesting. So we're ending out in the support area, in my opinion, right in here. And the question is, you know, at some point in time, we're going to find a resistance. But it looks like we could push slowly but surely maybe to this trend line, which would probably be resistance. And then the question is, do we break for that bigger correction, or do we bounce for more downside? You know, so that seems to be the most likely path for the Aussie. You know, there's always like points that have high probabilities and points that are, you know, decision-making points. So the first decision-making point is here, in my opinion, because the up move has potential, although it's in a downtrend, so I'm not taking it. But I think looking at this double bottom, this is still a key resistance right in here, by the way, where I have the, I'll make it pink so it's clear. This is still key resistance, so I'm definitely not interested in going long. But I'm also not interested in going short because of the double bottom, the blue line. So it's in no man's area at the moment. Unless we would indeed move up and hit that trend line and find resistance there, then some downside could happen, right? But then the question is, do we move up for that bigger correction, or do we keep that in that downtrend? You know? So that's the most likely path. And then eventually we'll have the same question when we reach the 786. We'll have the same scenario and decision-making moment. Will we go up for that bigger correction or to continue the downtrend? Right? So that's the Aussie. So not interested in the Aussie at the moment, myself. Let's see the yen. The yen made that small upside as I was expecting, but wasn't interested because it's counter trend here. But did make that upside back to that top, which was resistance, and it still is. So yeah, let's see. Could make a fall down to this trend line here and then bounce up and keep in this wedge, or bounce off this trend line and move higher to the 50 fib and this trend line again. All right, that's possible as well, or break, right? So that's going to be interesting here. If we get this or this. At the moment, really where I would get interested in this currency, let me say it this way, is either if it hits this trend line and bounces at the 50 fib, for example, right in here for downside, or if it would break this trend line for downside, and eventually this bottom. So break of this bottom, or break of this trend line, or a hook back and bounce off the 50 and that trend line. That's where I get interested more or less in this dollar yen to the downside. Upside, I'm really only interested if we break this trend line where I have the, well, let me make it otherwise upside. Let me do it new, make it blue. Oh, blue. Yeah, upside really only interested if we break this trend line, first of all. And then with an impulse, strong move up, and then make slow correction down. And it's clear that we're getting a lower high here, higher low, sorry, higher low. And we have a higher high here, and then the trend is changing, and then I will look for upside. That's the only time I'm looking for upside, okay? So the downside is the moment what I'm looking for, but as I said, not here though, at other places. If I look at the 1 hour chart, 1 hour chart gives a bit different perspective. For 4 hour chart, the trend line looks like very close by, but if you look at the 1 hour chart, then it suddenly seems like more space. How many pips is it? 95, 50 pips difference. That trend line is something I want to be careful of because it definitely could be a bouncing spot. Let's see. Let me take a look at the 15-minute world. Yeah, I had a good break yesterday. I know traders who took that trade. I wasn't too keen on it, but I applaud them for that trade. The reason why I didn't like it that much right away is that the moving averages here in the 15-minute world were begging for a move up first. I didn't see this fall in one shot, so which indeed happened, but we did find renewed resistance here, and it pushed it back down again. But that happened like at Tokyo Open, actually. Let's see. It could make this fall here, but not too keen on the risk here that upon the fractal break compared to the target. Not that great. I think it's not even 1-to-1, which is not good. And is everyone aware? Everyone okay with the reward to risk understanding? Why that is important? Anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Just want to check. The reward is the risk is like almost 50 pips, and the reward is 40. So that doesn't make sense to me. There's not enough. I mean, of course, this trend line could break, so that would then increase, make it a better R2R, of course. But I'm not speculating on that. I always want to have, at the most logical bouncing spot, or let me say it this way, a strong, decent bouncing spot, then I want to have a certain reward to risk, right? And that's not here. So not interesting for me at the moment. But I'll keep an eye on it because it could make a smaller hook back and then break. Then the risk is a lot lower here, right? So, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. So let's move on. Let me just take a quick look at the pound dollar. Oh, yeah, it did bounce off this Asian high, as you see. So let's see if we can stay the next 35 minutes in this area, all right? That would be interesting. Euro dollar still moving down. Not interested in Yazzie, as I said. Maybe New Zealand. Let's take a look. New Zealand did this too. Wow, I have a lot of trend lines on. Let me move them with some of them. This too had a nice break like the Aussie, but also didn't really go too far. I think even less than the Aussie because we fibbed this upside, went to a 50 fib exactly. All right. Plus, we broke out of this downside, correction line here, and actually posted a higher high. So, to be honest, this downside was already a bit more counter trend, to be honest. And it looks like we're bouncing. And I would say the New Zealand is almost an uptrend, even on except the day chart doesn't have a higher low. Otherwise, okay, the 4-hour chart has lower highs, lower lows now. So a key level would be this high in here. If we break that, we're breaking above this trend line, this black trend line again, right? So that would change things. It's a pretty key level, I would say. Let's see, we could draw this trend line here. Maybe we broke out of that already. So interesting, because we broke out of this trend line here, we broke out of this trend line, we broke out of this trend line, but went back, we broke out of this trend line. So it's quite a mixture, and that happens often when we get bigger corrections or reversals. So I'm not 100% sure which one of these it's going to be, because the Aussie is definitely set lower and more bearish. But yeah, so it's a bit tricky. But if it were to break above this level, make a good impulse, and then some correction like this, I think it would be good for upside already. All right, so it's close to be, for me to say I'm interested in upside. Not yet, but it could be. If it breaks maybe below these lows again, then it could be good for downside, ironically. So quite a narrow range, but in this case, we're quite close to upside and downside potential. But the downside potential would be almost immediate here. The upside, I would still want to see an impulse and then a correction. So the upside has a bit more work to do than the downside, but could be turning there. Let's see. This is the EJ. Let's see. We got key high here at 128.10 and a key trend line. So it'll be interesting to see if we can break to the upside to these trend lines and maybe get certainly some respect there, and then see if we get a bounce there or break. Or if we keep moving down, we could break maybe that trend line. That would be interesting downside as well. So I'm interested in here, or a break below here and a break below this low. That's the spaces for me for downside. Upside, maybe above this support here, but still you want to be careful of these trend lines. All right. Otherwise, kind of tricky, this EJ. This 4 hours level would be important as well. A break of that would definitely be an extra confirmation of downside. That's about it, I guess. If you have any questions, by the way, about any currency, let me know, okay? Otherwise, I'll just go one by one, tell you what I see and what I'm waiting for to trade, okay? And hopefully we'll bump into something that I'll trade now. This is pound yen. That could be interesting, maybe. That's set a bit different than the euro yen, actually. And let me take a look. So let's see. Yeah, sure. We can take a look at the Swiss definitely after this one, okay? Kind of in a nice wedge here. Kind of funky too, though. Spikes up and down, but we kind of settled down in this area here, as you see. So the break, we are having a break as we speak. The only thing I don't like about it, let me take a look at the 4 hour chart. I'll zoom in so you can see it well. We have a 4 hour fractal right in here, which is only 20 pips away. So, that's a bit iffy for me. I don't like it because of that. But this could be a good 4 hour oscillator setup, maybe, if it breaks this 4 hour bottom with the stop loss above the high. And you can target 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. That looks pretty decent here. Maybe 1-to-1 would be safer, because then again on the day chart, here too we've reached this zero line as well of this downside. So that makes the downside still okay, but has the potential to make double bottom and maybe reverse here for some upside because of the IAO is ready as well. And if you put a fib on this entire upside here, then we're approaching the 618 fib. So that could be a spot that this currency finds support for maybe some upside after a nice downside. So that's why I'll be more careful and inclined to think 1-to-1 already on this AO strategy is better. But you know, it is a 1 hour break as well, but I don't like it if it's so close to that 4 hour support. All right. Let me see on the 50-minute chart. Yeah, especially if the risk is so big. It would have been okay. Let's see. Yeah, you see, the problem is, what I don't like about it personally, it is breaking, but the problem is that the fractal is all the way here. Entry would have had to been, you know, a few pips below the current price, but here's the 4 hour support. That doesn't add up in what I'm looking for. Now it might work fine, and I'm sure there are a lot of traders pushing it down because they like to break, but I don't like to break. So I'm a bit more pickier, and I like to have that balance. And I think it's a good practice. It keeps me disciplined as well. By having patience, I have a lot more discipline. Let's see. That's the pound yen. We'll take a look at the dollar Swiss, but I'll just answer few questions, okay? Because just a quick Q&A. I know that for some of you that's a bit boring, but I have 2 questions, I guess, from Marco. Anything else? No, that's it actually. Okay. So how do you set up your MT4 to allow all drawings? The drawings is not from MT4 actually. It's from a program which I have no affiliation with from Zoomit. Okay. It's just a useful tool to for me to show you where I'm drawing, where I'm looking at, because I could be talking, but the chart is big, so you have no idea what area of the chart my attention is going to. So with this, I can easily draw your attention to that top, of course. So that's why I use it. I don't use it when I'm trading myself without any viewers. I'm not using it, of course. But you could, nothing wrong with it, but I use it primarily to show you. And do I use any indicators? I use trend lines primarily, moving averages. I use oscillator like the AO, MACD, ADX, but primarily AO more than MACD, to be honest. The stochastics also a bit, not that much. More the AO, moving averages, trend lines, fibs, fractal indicator. Those are the indicators I use. Okay. Let's take a look at the Swissy. And the price action, candlestick formations, impulse correctives. But those are not really maybe indicators though, right? But for me, they are indicating good information. So that's why I actually mentioned them. Let's take a look at this Swissy. Looks pretty good. We had a nice break yesterday. And this is one of those AO setups actually. They don't all work, but on average 4 or 5 do work and 1 or 5 don't. So I hope this one is one of those 4 and not one of those 1. But it is looking good. I mean, we had engulfing bearish candle here. We had sideways move. So usually, or not usually, but there's a good chance that we can see a continuation back to the bottom, I would say. Maybe get double bottom, who knows. Could retrace, found resistance. Right in here, at the fib actually, if you fib this down move. Right, as you see. But couldn't break, didn't have enough power to break through this bottom. It made double bottom. That's also because of the timing of the market. It was like already, let's see, London was closing. So not always do you get really a lot of movement and later New York or New York afternoon. All right, and that indeed didn't happen. Just had a very slow sideways move in New York afternoon, and then the in between New York is closed and Asian open. You have a few hours of no market, and in Asia, and you know all those hours really didn't do much on the U.S. Swiss, really, just nothing. We had engulfing bearish candles on the 1 hour chart. So I think it looks good, but if anyone's worried about this trade for the downside, then there's nothing wrong with moving it to +1 effect or moving it above this fractal high here. Not sure where anyone took it, if you took it. If you did, moving your stop loss, it's not part of the actual trade setup, to be honest, but if you feel a bit uncomfortable about it, you can move your stop loss above this fractal, hope for a break immediate now because it did have various engulfing candles with double top here, and you know, that way you can limit your risk probably to 0 or maybe a few pips loss. If it does break here to the upside, we could maybe see a bigger correction, right? It's possible, maybe somewhere up to 786 before moving down. If you don't want to live through that, although the official strategy is just aiming for a 1-to-1 without moving to break even, but it makes sense in my opinion because we had, you know, this is the 4-hour highs as well, so there's nothing wrong with that really, and hope for a break to the target. All right. So I'm not sure why, Flavia, what your goal was to ask me. If you have a certain thing you want to ask me, let me know, okay? But this is how I look at it at the moment. You know, the day candle isn't too convincing as well. We did have pretty good wicks here, as I said yesterday. So that downside did happen. But then again, we did find some wick here, but this is a pretty big day candle, and the US dollar index is running into support sometime soon. So those things all added up would make me feel more comfortable to move it to break even here, in my opinion. That's why. Of course, this level definitely resistance, major resistance. If we break that, then the next one would be this level. And I would be only interested in the upside, really, if we break at least this in an impulsive way and get a correction that is showing some potential of moving up and take the next break. Then it's kind of already an uptrend. All right, that's what I would be looking for. Otherwise, still in a downside mode. But to me, like the euro, to be honest, not really interested in trading this to the downside, like the euro to the upside, just because the same reason, just because here is yesterday's low at 91.75. All right. If we break 91.75, there is some space to this bottom maybe, and then if we break the bottom for downside to the weekly bottom in here. All right. So that's how you can space out your support and resistances in logical, using all time frames in a logical sequence, and by maintaining the focus to one side with the trend and incorporating support and resistances on different time frames with lows, highs, fibs, fractals, we can make a clear-cut trading plan on any currency within, well, how many minutes? 2 minutes, 3 minutes it takes me. You could do this for every currency. This is how I literally look at the currencies, and I then most often what I like to do is take breaks on 1-hour charts of trend lines or 4-hour oscillator breaks as well. Those are my two favorites. The ones I showed last week, to be honest. And I just scan all these currencies. That's where I like the trading the most. I mean, this is really, last few months, I just realized that I used to do a lot of analysis, do very in-depth analysis on many time frames. It took me a lot of time, but slowly in the last year, I've been able to decrease that, save me a lot of time, but also actually my focus and attention has been a lot better since I minimized that. And actually, because I view the charts now less intensively, it has made me a better trader and more focused on what I want to see and what I want to trade, actually. Maybe because I was in the past watching the charts a bit more, I kind of maybe sometimes got impatient and took setups that were actually not, in my opinion, optimal, for example. So that's a bit ironic maybe, but it's how it works for me. Maybe it could be good information for you as well. Let's see. But that's and just actually a few months, because before that although I was trying to minimize the analysis, I was still taking more trades as well, like fibs. Not that fibs are wrong or bad, but I must say that the breakouts on the 1 hour and 4 hour world are doing me so well that I noticed that I started to focus more and more on those, on my own trading, to be honest. But I definitely, know that there are intraday traders that like this 15 and 5 minutes. I sometimes take 50-minute breaks too, by the way, as well, but only if there's a good 1 hour correction, like this. So, even though that this is a 50-minute chart, I'm especially interested in it because it's a 1 hour correction. So let's see. This is already 30, 60, 1.5 hours from now, 1.5 hours above that Asian high. So would like to see still 2 more candles. This one's closing in 3 minutes. So the next one might push up to hit this trend line. So still want to wait 80 minutes, but this could be interesting. Let's see, a break of this high would be at 156.69 plus spread. So it's like a 33 pipper. And the high here is at 157.50. So that's 80 pips. So that's, even if it makes double top, it's still almost a 3-to-1. Oh wait, let me go just quick back to the Swissy, by the way. I'll take a look at this at the top of the hour. Where's the Swissy? Let's see, Flavia was thinking about a buy limit at 92.80. You mean a buy stop, probably, right, Flavia? Or do you want price to break through this level and then a hook back, and then you would put a buy limit on it, and you would buy here with a buy limit? That would be a buy limit, of course. Or are you thinking of a buy stop when we push through it? So you're thinking of the first option, right? Okay. 92.80. To be honest, to think about exact entries already that far ahead is not something I typically do. I want to see how price breaks it, if it breaks. How does the correction look like? Then I might pay the limit, or I might take a market order. So I don't usually look that far ahead, to be honest. But in theory, and I say it with a big emphasis, I see your point in the sense that if we break through that level, this could become support for upside. So that, the concept I do understand, and that way makes sense. But for me, there's still lots of stuff to have to see and have to happen before I would really do that. You know what I mean? But the concept I understand, and it's basically, using probably this support, right? And maybe if you would fib that upside, maybe it could be a 50 fib or a 382 fib. So I understand, if that's what you mean, I understand it. That is, understandable thinking, good thinking as well. But something I wouldn't do now. Though you couldn't do it anyhow, right? Because you haven't even broken above it. But could make sense, yeah. You're like a chess player, Flavia. You're already thinking, few steps ahead of time. That's good, though. It's good to think ahead. I think that that's definitely a good quality and a good characteristic for trading, Flavia. So good job on that. Because I think that's probably, if anything, traders, most of the time don't even think about, just enter and don't even think about what actually is the next step. Maybe, so for example, like where to put stop loss. Not saying that you are that anyone here is like that, but I know that some have that, right? That are just trading emotions, trading movement without even thinking through what is happening on the other charts, what is happening, or even planning ahead of time, right? So stuff like that. Anyhow, I don't want to bore you. Do be careful though, Flavia, that this is, yeah, let's see, that this is still a downtrend on the day chart, right? So any upside could also encounter resistance that could push this through. That's why I want to be careful with this buy limit that you have in mind, because it could do this. And we would have a three-wave up and then down. So that's why I want to see not only an impulsive up, but I want to see a slow move down, and preferably then a break, even a break of that trend line. So I wouldn't even go for a limit probably. I would go for a entry order upon the break, and then I would feel more comfortable. Now if we break above this high, you know, after we do something like that, then limit orders make sense, because then we're in an uptrend. So that's my opinion on the dollar Swiss. Let's take a look at the pound Swiss. Pound Swiss could be interesting, I think, because we made a pretty good break here, and nice down move. Okay, great, Flavia. Happy to hear that. And pound Swiss could be interesting. I think that if it moves up to the 50 or 618, it is a big stop, so I can imagine that some of you are not interested in that. But it would be interesting, because if this AO is back to the zero line, you can see impulse, correction, and if either the fib or if we get a break of this, you know, to the downside, could be very interesting on this pound Swiss. Definitely a nice downtrend. Look at these blue trend lines here. So, you know, looking pretty interesting. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Euro CAD moving down indeed. Topping a bit out, same like the Euro odd. Those are all counter trend moves though. Not interested in that. Euro New Zealand 2. Pound odd. Yeah, we had a bit of a struggle. We were hoping for a break continuation here, right? It didn't move down that fast. It still pushed up, made double top here on the 1 hour chart. So there was still plenty of time actually, but then did make that fall and up again, and now moving down. So it's a bit of a wedge. I like this wedge, just like the pound dollar. For me, this support is important. If it breaks that, then you know, maybe it's retracing deeper. I'm not interested in that. It's counter trend. But if it breaks this top trend line, I like it. That could be very interesting. So definitely interesting, that pound odd. You can see we found renewed support after that down move at this trend line as well. And we went to the 618 fib actually of this 786 fib, right? So was hoping for a break to the next fib, but we didn't get that. That could still be the target though for this next move, right? If we break. I move the fib up to this last piece, 786, 886 bounce. So let's see. If that were to be the case, then looks like we have a nice confluence here with the targets. You see that? I know there are a lot of fibs on this chart, but basically, or I can even take this one off now for the moment. Basically, we had a 382 bounce, target, also the 618 from this fib, right, was there. Retracement, 786, bounce. Question is, if we break this trend line, then we see a nice target confluence, right? Confluence is always key in trading. finding enough confluence and finding reasons why you shouldn't take the trade is actually more important than finding reasons why you should take the trade. Because many times you always find a reason or two to find a trade, to take a trade. Better to find at least 3 to take a trade, and if you can't find a reason not to take a trade, then you're probably good to go. That could be a good tip for everyone. But this is looking good to me if we break that trend line up to this target here. All right, if we break this this low, a bit warning, a bit cautious. These bottoms in here, I should say, and this bottom, then we might be making a bigger trade. Not interested in that though. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll move on. Pound New Zealand, same story basically. In fact, here too, just like the pound Aussie, here too we're in a wedge. So only interested for the moment at the upside. Although if we break to the downside in an impulse and break this low, for example, just like the pound Aussie, and we then make a retracement, then the next break I would already be interested in it because that would be already with the trend, right? So, if we break to the downside, we are getting close to that bearish mode. But at the moment, still only interested in the upside break here, just like the pound odd. Let's take a look at gold. Not working. Let me get rid of this one and go to this one. Yeah, this one is working. Good. So yesterday we had a bearish candle. We had a break of that trend line here. It didn't go too far, right? Didn't go that far. In fact, 1371. Well, still, yeah, only a $10 movement there. Looks like we're hooking back. So maybe that could be, this is the 30-minute chart. It's a bit tricky because, it's moved so little. But maybe now we could see a fall to these support levels. Then we'll have to see if we get a bounce, a continuation, or a bounce and bigger movement to the bigger resistances. All right, so that's a bit of a question. But maybe finally we can break out of this zone and see some movement to the downside. It's looking like we're making some correction up, so what we could do is maybe even flip this upside like that, and if we hit this target, this minus 618 target at 1375, that could be a resistance zone for some downside. Then we could see something like this happen actually. Downside, we bump into this trend line still. See another bounce off that, and then the break. All right, so that either the target or the break are the most interesting at the moment for me. And if we flip this downside here, the 618 target is more or less lined up with the 618 fib as well. So that's how I would be playing this gold on the lower time frame. All right. Aussie, New Zealand. Aussie moving up a lot. Counter trend at the moment. You can see impulse. So wouldn't be trading that. Only looking for good resistance spots. It could turn anywhere in these fibs, to be honest. But I like, on the Aussie New Zealand, I like more trend lines, to be honest, because this one really moves up and down a lot. I don't like the fibs on this one, to be honest, because it moves up so much and down. So I like breaks more. So I'd be more waiting for a break of this trend line for the downside. That could be interesting. but I only trade it really if I like something a lot. This is the dollar index, I think. Well, we haven't broken the low now for 3 days on the dollar index. That hasn't happened in a very long time. We've broken the low at least every 2 days, mostly every day, since end of May. So, that's been definitely a lot of weeks to the downside. So that's already saying something, I would say, but still a lot of wicks at the top as well. So kind of the dollar index really a bit funky at the moment. We are close, as I think Flavia said, to support, to the trend line at 786, but it's still some, a bit more down actually before we bump it at 786 and the trend line. So maybe one more fall is probable. This chart is okay. Sorry about that. Let me change the template. Aussie Swiss is really falling like no tomorrow. Well, that's actually all the Aussie pairs, right? All the Aussie pairs have been falling like crazy, and that doesn't surprise me in a single second because, as you know, maybe you know, I wrote an article on April the 18th expecting 92.30-ish, 91.50, 92.30 in between there at mid-June. The 12th of June we hit 93.30, so I was only a cent off, and right on the money regarding the time factor. So I was pretty happy with that. So well, in any case, it proves or shows that I was definitely expecting Aussie downside, and really across the board, also against the Swissy. And here too, maybe yet another break we could get, although now it's moving counter trend, like the pound Swissy. Definitely downtrend. So would only be interested in downside breaks at the moment. Okay. Let me see how that looks like on the different template. 1 second. Alrighty. Well, this is actually one of those AO as well. It's already passed. That's what I wanted to look at, but it's already behind us. Here, AO back to the zero line after a very strong AO reading in a downtrend, right? A break of that fractal low. Stop loss here was a good trade. Let me check it exactly. Stop losses are big on this 1 hour chart, so 4 hour chart. That's a bit tricky maybe for some of you. Yeah, we got the target here already. 1-to-1 is hit, so the 2-to-1 target would still be open, but with a 1-to-1 hit, you could move it to 1-to-1. You can move it to break even. So that was nice. But anyhow, for some of you maybe who have a lower trading capital, they're not looking for a bit lower stop loss, then 1 hour break trades, of course, have smaller stop losses, right? So that could be better for you. But if you can manage to trade with even with smaller capital using this 4 hour chart AO, it's definitely a very reliable setup. I see it stroke of the clock has hit the top of the hour, so let's take a look at the pound a dollar. Alrighty. Anyone interested in an intraday trade? Or only swing traders here at the moment? I probably scared off the intraday traders in the meantime, I guess. Looking pretty good. 2 hours of movement to the upside. Staying above that high. So yeah, it looks pretty good to me actually. I think we can get that break as we speak. We had an inside candle last hour, right? If we zoom into this recent price action on the 1 hour chart, we see bullish candles, right? Well, first of all, we see a 6 to 18 pip bounce. Then we see bullish candles, very weak retracement, bullish candles, and last hour was just an inside candle, right? Just like I said, it's not going to break immediately. I have to stay 2 hours above there. So yeah, looks good. I'm going to try it. So that would be a new order I'm going to try with a pending order above the high at 156. How much is the spread? Half a pip or yeah. So I'll go at 156.70 then. And I'll put the stop loss under the bottom at 156.37. And I'm targeting the top at 157.50. Yes. Just double checking those numbers because I remember 2 weeks ago I had the euro dollar stop loss, which was like 1,000 pips actually lower than the entry, which of course definitely was not my goal. Luckily, someone attended that to me, and I thought he was criticizing my stop loss placement, but in fact he was just helping me by saying that the stop loss level was 1,000 pips too low. So well, maybe I'll go a bit below that because the top is exactly I see at 157.50. So I don't like to aim exactly for the target, so I'll probably go for 57.40. I will trail stop it. It's not like everything or anything. If we get a 1 hour fractal, I'll use that to put that stop loss under it. If we get a massive 1 hour candle, I might use the low to place my 1 hour stop under that. Or if we get a huge wick at the top here, I might take the profit on the retracement of that 1 hour wick. These are things that are a bit tricky to convey what will happen and how I will trade it, because I do look at candlesticks and this stuff live to trade it. So I'm not sure if you're taking that, if anyone actually takes that trade, but you have a few ideas with me or not. But if you do, then you have a few ideas how I would be trail stopping that. All right, or my game plan or chess plan would be. So I'm already thinking ahead what kind of steps there would be ahead. Just like Flavia as a chess player, I am too. And I'm already thinking like, okay, if this happens, then I'll do this, and then if that happens, I'll do that. So that, the target is this, but it really also depends on what happens in between. So now it's your time. I've talked a lot, and I hope it was interesting. Do you have any questions? No problem, Graham. I'm actually about finished with my analysis, so I'm very pleased with your comment because my thoughts are running dry. You want to see the recorded support and resistance webinar. Aha, thanks, Graham. I'll actually write a message right now so that I don't forget. Recording support and resistance. All right, thanks, Graham, for that heads up. That's perfect. That's really good to know. So I will send a message. Flavia say, you're welcome, Flavia. Glad, very happy about that. What do you expect from the FOMC tonight? Yeah. You know what? To be very honest, I have no clue. I know I want to give a sophisticated answer, but I'm very curious. Sometimes actually FOMC has sometimes no movement, sometimes tons of movement. It's going to be interesting because, you know, the euro especially with pound have been nice uptrends, but maybe it's always tempting to think that at some point in time we might get bigger corrections, if that would be, you know, for dollar strength. Yeah, the dollar index made, you know, definitely in a downtrend, right? Let me say it this way. Dollar index, weeks and weeks, 4 weeks of downside or 5 weeks, but we are approaching support. So what could we expect? Maybe on the dollar index, FOMC pushing it downside, and then we see a close in reverse, or FOMC pushing it up one more time, and then we see like back to resistance, and then we see dollar again moving down. Difficult. I mean, in fact, both could happen, I guess. It's really, really difficult. Sometimes it doesn't have any effect, you know. It's, yeah, I guess closing the trades, depending on what type of, if you're taking the Euro CAD on a day chart, for example, like I was talking about last week, my long-term strategy setup, sorry, a break of this top, right? Well, we definitely did get a retracement, but then again, we found support right at this fractal. So sometimes a better strategy is to fib instead of taking the break, to fib it, and the 786 would have given you a very big discount, for example, right? Well, I'm sidetracking. Sorry, forgive me. I always wander off of my thoughts, but the point is that if you're in this Euro CAD long, for example, then not sure if you want to necessarily close that trade. You know, I don't think that would necessarily influence it. It's still an uptrend. We made a wedge here. That's why I was so interested in this break yesterday, because I knew that I have other strategy that is saying that if we break this high, that's how you can use multiple strategies to your advantage. I know that if this high was broken, the chance of this fractal low getting broken is low. So any mess within here is just retracement to fib, and eventually if we make a mess and break, that's a high likelihood of continuing to the upside because of this strategy as well, and the trend, which indeed happened. So those, you know, the likelihood of going to this target is high. So still interested, but maybe would like to see a retrace and then a break, and I'll be again interested into this target. So, but my point is that maybe for a trade like that, the day chart Euro CAD, you know, FMOC, maybe wouldn't be that would be okay to keep it, I would think. But that's just you know, still of course your decision, and always your decision, right? Let's see. How do you set these trend lines? Trend lines, what I'm looking for, most cases, a good trend line is, well, we'll have a topic, we'll have a webinar on trend lines, to be honest. So, Camo, you know, that's definitely something you might want to take a look at. But trend lines, you can use fractals. You can see here, just grab here, go to this toolbar, click on trend line, place it on the starting point, drag it to the ending point, and let it go, and you have your trend line, if that's what you mean, if it's a technical thing. If you mean more from a conceptual point, how do you set these trend lines? What I'm looking for is a top and a low, and I just connect them. Preferably if they nicely hit, but sometimes I cut through price action. So it's a bit of a subjectiveness, but sometimes. But yeah, basically just trying to connect 2 points and seeing if a third point respects that level too, like here. Three touches is always the best, or 3 areas. You see, you have 3 areas, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches. But we'll give a lot of details, more details, and go through this in more detail in that trendline webinar. Okay. Kaylin, that's the same question actually that you asked a while ago. Not sure what you actually, how else to answer it. You know, the biggest volume is banks and central governments, right? And basically you just have a certain demand and supply, and if a demand dries up because the supply is bigger, then the price is going to move, and you're going to see it move up. Or, yeah, let's see, if there's more demand for euro and the supply of CAD is running out, and this is going to move up, and then eventually at certain level there's going to be the supply again from the CAD somewhere here. Maybe I'm mixing it up, but I'm always confused with the two. And then you'll see the price move up and then stop at that level where there are new orders, and then you'll see resistance again, move down a bit maybe, and then the same, for example. So that's, if that's what you mean. It's supply and demand, right? But the biggest influences on that are from banks and corporations, normal transactions, central banks. All right, the euro pound hitting this trend line, which in a way doesn't surprise me. That's normal. When you get a trend line like this hit, move down, a trend line doesn't break in one shot. So at minimum, what I said is I wanted a 2-hour move above that high, right? So that qualified me when we ended that hourly candle. It was enough for me to put a pending order, but I was already thinking that a bounce, one more bounce here could still be possible as well, actually. All right, so I hoped that, let me ask you this, did you enjoy, I did it a bit differently today. Instead of focusing more on the euro and pound, which I of course definitely analyzed right away, but I tried to focus more on my analysis on all the currencies, and I also told you what I would be looking for to trade it. And if something were to happen, I would have told you right away I would trade it, but I didn't really bump into anything today that I liked. Did you like that style, or would you like more the focus on a couple? Kaylin liked it, okay. Graham likes it as well. So just write a Y or an N. Yes, you liked it, N or no, or if you want, you can type a sentence. That's also fine. All right. Okay, so that's 3 who liked it. 1 said enjoyed it, but focusing is still a preference. Yeah, sure, Gaber. No, please feel free to give your input. This is more how I trade it, to be honest. So I've adopted my style a bit to this webinar, but oh, sure, Kamo, no problem. Anyone else there, or everyone fell asleep? I see a few left already. That's no problem. We're going to close it up as well. But basically, yeah, the euro dollar, to be honest, really, you see the problem is that 1.5 hours, unless you're really trading like Tarantula, maybe with pivots, and catch, I don't know, maybe you would catch a sell here and a buy here, no idea. to be honest. Or he would be waiting for a break probably of that high. But unless you do that, 1.5 hours for me is very small point in time because I'm looking at hour bars. So, things take hours to set up for me, and I just keep monitoring them. So that's how I trade. That suits my personality more, but because if you look at it from my perspective, this up and down really has no influence. I mean, it's just like nothing. The daily high is here. I'm looking for support here. It's just, for me, it's like nothing happened. But I can imagine for people who have bigger focus on certain pairs, that is maybe a good movement. Alrighty, folks, thank you for being here in any case. Let's take a look at maybe the euro pound a bit longer tomorrow, and if there's something really to trade. As I said, the pound, I wanted anyhow this to be 2 hours above it, and you can see that it's just chopping here, waiting for the break, in my opinion. So then again, how long do you want to look at the pound in a way? If nothing is really moving, I was thinking, but so let's see. If there's something on the euro pound, we can definitely focus a bit longer on those. Otherwise, of course, I'll go through the 1 hour and 4 hour charts on the others to see if there are any good breakouts or oscillator trades. All right? Alrighty, folks. Thanks for being here, and have a good trading and good trading day, and good day in general, of course. And I hope to see you all tomorrow on the 20th of June, Thursday. Cheers, everyone.
For your